Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dido, and as I promised, here is the Arcane Guide of the Mage. The patch is 6.0.3, one day, actually the evening before highmaul is released. Hope you enjoy it. I'm just gonna do a little introduction about the guide. I would say right now that DPS wise the Arcane spec is not as good as the Frost one, but actually I think it's more fun. It's way more work though in 5-man dungeons, and then it's not really worth it, especially if you run challenging modes. But it's, like I said, it's more fun, and actually the rotation itself is way simpler than the Frost one, and you don't count on any procs, or at least you don't count on procs as much. So let's just get into it, shall we? Stats. Well, that will be a quick one. Intellect, obviously, it's your best friend here again. Second place, or actually first from the enhancements and the most important stats, because obviously all your gear has intellect. This is mastery, and the main reason for that is actually Arcane Mind. You gain 5% mastery from all sources. Second place is actually tied between multi-strike and haste. Third place is critical strike, and fourth place is versatility. These statistics have been obtained by combining common sense and in-game testing, and also using simulation by Simulation Craft. None of which is done by me, but this is what is right according to theory crafters, and I believe them, so you should believe them too. Okay, let's talk about talents and glyphs. Let's start with tier 1. I pick Icy Flows here for many reasons. First of all, you have 3 charges, up to 3 charges. The cast time of Arcane Blast is 2.2 seconds, so you're gonna have over 6 seconds of dodging and running from shit and casting. This is perfect, this is great. I still like my ice block. I'm not gonna replace my ice block like I did in my Frost guide, but here actually for Arcane, Icy Flows beats everything else by far. This is what I think, and I think this is what is best for doing the maximum DPS you can. Second tier, Outer Time, a lot of people say this is by far the best. I don't like it, because you have to be master of the fight. You have to predict when you're gonna take that big damage. You have to use the skill before that, take the damage, use the skill again so you can get back to full health and be safe. I still like Ice Barrier a lot more. It absorbs a lot of damage. It helps your healer. Actually on heroics, not on challenging modes, because everything hurts there quite a lot, but on heroics, normal heroics, you can actually stand through some of the big hits of them from the bosses with Ice Barrier, because they don't do that much damage. Next year everything is useless again. I pick Ice Ward. You know, it can save you some troubles with loose mobs and stuff like that. Next year, greater invisibility is still my pick. Other than that, I can mention Code Snap, which actually resets your presence of mind, but it's not that a big deal, and greater invisibility just gives you so much utility. The fact that removes all your threat, and if you're going to wipe or something, you can just reset the encounter and stay safe and save some money for repair. So I pick greater invisibility right here. Next year is the important one. Supernova is great, a lot of fun, a lot of damage, but actually it's less DPS than the one and only Nether Tempest. Nether Tempest good for single target. It actually does decent damage to mobs nearby. It's not great, but it's there, and it does its job. So I like the Nether Tempest by far. Of all these 3, I pick Nether Tempest. Next year also quite important one. Mirror images, as you know, is mandatory for the Frost one, but here actually Rune of Power is better. You can cast up to 2 Rune of Powers, and there's a little trick that I'm doing all the time. I'll show you right now. You just cast. It's pretty simple. You just cast one of the runes on one of the side of the place where you're gonna fight the boss. You cast the other one right there. It's basically you try to cast them on a one blink distance. So whatever there's like something that's gonna hit you here, whatever boss boss ability he does that's gonna hit you here, you just quickly blink to the other Rune of Power and DPSing. That's what I do usually, and it works quite a lot, quite well. On some boss fights actually you have to recast, which is pain because you lose time. It's 1.5 seconds cast. But Rune of Power is actually better than in mirror images at this point. The next one, the big one as well, quite important one, Arcane Orb. I don't like at all, it does no damage at all. The only good thing is that it gives you arcane charges, so it's good for stacking arcane charges. It's actually great for trash, but it actually sucks on bosses. Prismatic Crystal is not bad, quite a lot of DPS. But as I talked on my Frost guide, it's actually situational. Sometimes you cannot just sit and spam the Prismatic Crystal because you have to move, the tank has to move, the mobs has to move away from it. So sometimes you just DPS half of the duration of the crystal, and you kind of waste DPS, and the cooldown is 1.5 minutes, which is pretty big. I choose overpower anytime. Here, that's my choice because Arcane Missiles extends the arcane power by 2 seconds. And actually, you can have arcane power for a good 40 seconds or even more if you got a little bit lucky. 30 seconds, 40 seconds should be about right, which means you have arcane power for the full duration of the time warp. Obviously you're gonna use both of them together, so I like overpower. This is my choice. You use pretty much arcane power and time warp on every single boss. They both are combined like really powerful damage together. So yeah, this is the talents I'm using. Glyphs. Well, actually, Glyphs not that important. Everything is pretty much bullshit for Arcane. The only good one and pretty much mandatory is the Glyph of Arcane Power. It basically doubles the time of the Arcane Power and doubles the cooldown. But it doesn't matter, especially heroics challenging modes. Arcane Power and Time Warp on every boss, and the boss fights are less than a minute, so you have with a decent group, so you actually have them pretty much for the whole fight. Other than that, everything else is crap. Cone of Cold, just some extra damage against large amount of trash, and Glyph of Arcane Explosion actually increases the Arcane Explosion by 5 yards, or to 5 yards by 5 yards. So quite a big radius for the Arcane Explosion. Look how big it is. It looks like yeah, something insane, but nothing special here. Minor glyphs again, I don't really care for them. So that's gonna conclude it for the talents and glyph section of the video. If you watched my Frost guide by now, you know that I like to talk about skills before I actually move on to rotation, so you actually can understand what's gonna happen and why we are doing it this way. Let's start with the two passives that are important, and the skill that is the passive that is the most important thing of the Arcane Mage. This is the Arcane Charge, which is generated by Arcane Blast, Arcane Missile, and Arcane Explosion, and is consumed by Arcane Barrage and Evocation. As you can see on the screen, the Arcane Charge does gives different bonuses to the different spells. I'm not gonna go through all of them. You're gonna see and talk about. I'm gonna talk about them a little bit more in the rotation part of the video. The second passive that is worth mentioning is actually the Arcane Charge. Every single Arcane Charge reduces the cast time of the Arcane Blast. So if you have 4 stacks, the Arcane Blast is reduced by 20%. 5 for each stack. Maximum of the Arcane Charges you can have is 4. Your main ability, DPS ability, is Arcane Blast. This is also your main Arcane Charger builder, so to say. It's a big damage, great damage, and consumes a lot of mana, especially when you have 4 charges. It's insane. Also, it can proc the Arcane Missile. You can have up to 3 procs, and you can use the Arcane Missile 3 times. Don't wait to use them when you have 3 stacks, or don't have 3 stacks and keep spamming the Arcane Blast. Just make sure you use your Arcane Missile all the time when they're available. You have to stop casting the Arcane Blast from time to time because it really eats your mana up super fast. So whenever you have an Arcane Missile proc, just use it, regen a little bit mana meanwhile, and it's all good. Another ability, that's the Arcane Barrage. You pretty much will never see me use it. I will talk about that in the rotation part of the video. This is for a proper big fight, boss fight, 25-man fight. It's really important, but for 5-mans and challenging modes right now, it's not really important. So I'm gonna explain that in the rotation part of the video. The Nether Tempest, the talent that we pick, you always use it on the target when you have 4 charges. It does the most then, and it's a little bit useless to use it before you have the 4 charges. Piercing of Mind, you use it at the very start of the fight to build up 4 arcane charges. You of course use the Piercing of Mind and then you use the Arcane Blast. You don't use it with anything else. This is the Rune of Power, like we talked about that. You just put a little circle of something on the ground and you have to stand around it to get the 15% damage increase. The 2 main abilities, the 2 main buff abilities, it's Arcane Power and the Time Warp. And I think this is actually pretty much, it's way simpler, like I said at the start, but it's actually more fun and I like it more, and I think it has potential to be actually a good spec in the future and in highmaul, but let's see about that. It's rotation time. Actually the rotation is pretty simple. As you can see, I casted my Rune of Power before the fight actually starts, so I don't lose any time. I like to cast them 1 blink away so I can jump to the other one if I need to and if I have to avoid damage. Then I start building these arcane charges. You build it with Arcane Blast, obviously. You use the Presence of Mind to build the 4 charges as fast as you can. After you get the 4 charges, you use the Nether Tempest on the target, you pop all your cooldowns and start spamming the Arcane Blast. When you have the Arcane Missiles, you use the Arcane Missile and you refresh the Nether Tempest when it's about to be gone. Actually, there's a little tip I can give you about the Nether Tempest. If you refresh it with less than 3 seconds, you actually not use any tech. So you can you don't be afraid to refresh it if you have like less than 3.6 seconds on the Nether Tempest on your target. So this is pretty much it. I will tell you one thing though. This is called the burn phase, and actually this is not the proper way you play Arcane Mage, and this is not the proper rotation. But this, from my testing, is the best you can do and the best you can get from Arcane in the 5-man dungeons, in the heroics, and actually in the challenging modes too. Especially if you have a decent group that does a lot of damage, you actually don't have and you waste a lot of, you don't have time, you waste a lot of DPS doing the normal rotation. Here's another example. I'm not gonna explain again the rotation because it's quite simple and quite obvious and you can see it yourself. I'll just keep talking about that burn phase that I'm doing and why I'm not doing the proper arcane rotation. With the proper arcane rotation, after you get to the 4 stacks, you refresh your Nether Tempest and you use your Arcane Barrage to actually reset your charges. You build your charges back up, you go to 4, you refresh your Nether Tempest, and you use your Arcane Barrage again. That way you can go all day long, but this does not work in the current 5-man heroics and the challenging modes because the fight is way too short. So you don't have to save any mana, you just have to burst through the whole fight and do as much damage as you can. So this is my tip for you. For the rotation, it's a little bit different from probably what you're gonna see on other places, but this is the way I do it and this is the way I found it to be competitive, the arcane that is. Usually I include a trash rotation DPS in my videos, but actually the DPS rotation on trash that I'm using is exactly the same that I use on the boss. So I'm just gonna do a little conclusion at the end of this video about the arcane spec. As you saw, the rotation that I use in the heroics and the challenging modes is actually just the burn phase of the normal arcane rotation. I don't use the proper arcane rotation, and I found what I'm doing to be actually pretty competitive. I'm able to put around 20k DPS, which is actually not that bad, and I can do a little bit better with the frost at the moment. Also, you have to consider that my gear is not actually fully properly geared for Arcane. I am actually using most of my Frost gear, which means I have mainly multi-strike and I don't have really the mastery that I need. So maybe with the proper gear I will probably pull about the same DPS as a Frost with the rotation I'm doing. I can see a future in the Arcane actually with the better gear, with the higher level gear, and actually with the long boss fights, because Frost actually relies a lot on procs, and it's kind of luck based for me, or it's a lot more luck based than what the Arcane is. So maybe in future, or actually pretty near future, which is highmaul, Arcane, it will find its way at least on some bosses. We'll find out soon, but I really hope that's the case, because we really need 2 competitive specs so people can choose whatever they like and make the game more fun. This is it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you liked it, and I hope I've been helpful. If you like the video, like it. If you dislike the video, dislike it. If you have any questions about the Arcane spec or whatever I can help you with, just post in the comments. I really enjoyed making this video. It took me a lot of time, even though it's a pretty simple video, but I enjoyed it, and I really hope I've been helpful. Goodbye and have fun in highmaul today. I hope you have great time and you get some gear. Bye bye.